Breaking news coming in. Major victory for India again, where UK High Court dismisses Nirav Modi's appeal, and the court says extraditing Nirav Modi won't be unjust or oppressive. Nirav Modi has lost appeal as UK High Court has ordered extradition to India to face fraud and money laundering charges. A big win for Indian agencies. Remind our viewers, UK High Court has said that extraditing Modi back to India will not be unjust or oppressive. In this regard, Nirav Modi to be extradited back to India to face charges of fraud and money laundering. Nirav Modi's defense team has claimed that his depression would worsen sent to the hostile environment of India, where politicians have demonized him by prejudging his guilt. Public, we have seen visuals before where public has burned his effigies on the streets.
Judicial insight for Nirav Modi based on experience of covering extradition cases. High Supreme Court will accept an appeal from Nirav Modi. He might try. The chances are very slim because the Supreme Court here only takes very few cases of larger public importance, or that is an issue of law.
Remind our viewers, we have Danish sharing more details with us on the big breaking story, where it's a big win for Indian agencies as Nirav Modi has lost appeal in the UK High Court, which has now ordered extradition to India to face fraud and money laundering charges. We will go back to my colleague Danish to share more details in just a bit.
That's a very high bar set. The Supreme Court here does not accept, any case that was lost at the High Court. It has to be of huge public importance, and more than that, it has to be of wider ramifications, none of which apply in Nirav Modi's extradition case, because the High Court here rejected all the points that was raised by Nirav Modi.
To share more details on this, we were right now joined by Danish, and we have Bhavtosh here to share more information. Bhavtosh, big win for Indian agencies now that we will probably have Nirav Modi back in the country to face fraud and money laundering charges.
Yes, a huge win for India, because the documents that have been submitted by Indian agency, be it the Enforcement Directorate or CBI, have stood scrutiny of the Westminster Court as well as by the High Court. Remember, he was arrested by the Indian agencies by the agencies in UK in March 2019, and has been in the prison since March 2019, and the courts have, in fact, vetted through all these documents that have been given to the Crown Prosecution Service. Now, during that period, Nirav Modi had time and again asked for bail, which have been rejected. He is a very great flight risk, and that's have been pointed out by the Crown Prosecution Service. One of the arguments that have been presented by his counsel, which he in fact had used in the High Court, was that he's suffering from psychiatric problems, and that he has suicidal tendencies, that if he is deported or extradited back to India, then he might die by suicide. Now, that's the basic argument that were presented by his counsel. The High Court, in fact, went through the two witnesses, who, in fact, were psychiatrists who had evaluated him, and it has now been decided by the High Court that the arguments that were presented by his defense counsel could not stand scrutiny, and he should be extradited. The big question is what will happen next, when it could be possible that he can follow the route of Vijay Mallya. Vijay Mallya was in fact also, the High Court had in fact said that he should be extradited, but somehow he managed to apply for a refugee status in UK, and since then that matter is stuck. Vijay Mallya, Nirav Modi can also follow the same route. So one has to wait and see what will happen next in this case. The British Home Secretary, way back in 2021, had in fact cleared his file for extradition. Indian agencies are hopeful that Nirav Modi, can be extradited as soon as possible. He has multiple cases that have been filed against him by Indian agencies. Most of these cases were filed in Mumbai, where the first offense were recorded by the CBI, and then subsequent offenses that were recorded by the Enforcement Directorate.
Bhavtosh, we also were sharing information earlier. Maybe you can shed more light on how Nirav Modi's defense team has claimed that his depression would worsen if sent back to the hostile environment that currently exists in India regarding his return. And they've also claimed that politicians have demonized him and prejudged his guilt. But what is the next process that we see, the next steps for what will happen when Nirav Modi is extradited and brought back to India?
Well, the first question, whether he will be extradited, because we have the example of Vijay Mallya, who, like in this case, his extradition was cleared by the London High Court, and then through some means, and he managed to, in fact, apply for refugee status. So one has to wait and see what happens next. So next few days or weeks are very important. Nirav Modi obviously will try his best to seek some kind of political refugee status in UK, and Indian agencies this time around has said that they will try to make sure that he does not do so. Now, you are right that his defense team did try to make the case that he's going through a very depressive phase. That's the basic argument that his counsel had used since 2020, that they're willing to submit a bail bond of a huge amount because he's going through a depressive phase, and that he will, in fact, if he's not released from imprisonment, then he will die by suicide. They in fact said that he should be put in a radio tag so that his movements can be monitored by the court. The basic argument of Indian agencies or Indian government, which was in fact represented by Crown Prosecution Service, was that he is a flight risk, and obviously he is a flight risk because as soon as the crime was committed, which is $2 billion banking fraud case, he fled from India. He went to Hong Kong. From Hong Kong, he went to UAE. So he continuously moved around the globe trying to hoodwink Indian agencies. And the amount of fraud that happened in India is a huge amount of fraud. $2 billion. The two main accused as far as this case is concerned include Nirav Modi, his uncle Mehul Choksi, who himself has managed to hold himself in Antigua. Indian agencies are trying to bring him back also, but it's a huge victory for Indian agencies, primarily because the main accused as far as this case is concerned, India has managed to win the case in London High Court. So all the documents that were submitted by Indian agencies, be it the charge sheets that were filed by the CBI, for that matter by the Enforcement Directorate, they have stood scrutiny, and one just hope that he's brought back and he faces the trial here, and so does his uncle Mehul Choksi, who in fact fraudulently used a letter of undertaking and then committed this fraud.
Right, Bhavtosh. Thank you so much for sharing all those details. We're going to continue to stay on this story. We are joined by lawyer Swapnil Kothari. Mr. Kothari, if we are through to you, this is a big win for Indian agencies and Nirav Modi now to be extradited back to India as he's lost his appeal in the UK High Court. So what is he going to face once he's brought back, considering, as Bhavtosh, my colleague, was sharing details of the huge scam under which he had fled to the UK and now he's being called back?
Well, let's wait till he comes back to India. It's still not, it's a great step that his appeal has been dismissed, but it's still time for him to come back because he will be using the asylum aspect also. He will be going before a lot of other, channels that he could be exploring before, there could be still a Human Rights Commission where he could be appealing. It was mainly the asylum aspect. So until and unless you finish that, he is still there. We, like Vijay Mallya, who is still there, we've got their extradition orders in our favor. We've also got the extradition order in favor of Sanjay Bhandari a couple of days ago. All of these are a good indication of where the Indian judicial system is being perceived as one of the more robust ones. And this is more of a diplomatic initiative and a success rather than a legal success, because behind this, there is a surround sound of diplomacy succeeding, where the Indian diplomats have been able to prevail upon the UK counterparts and say that, look, we are a robust legal system and we do very well. And there is no question of any human rights violations, etc. out here. So all of those arguments which are being presented by Nirav Modi are mere legal arguments which are presented by lawyers just to try to hoodwink the courts. And they don't really function well. They don't really happen well, and they don't really cut ice. And that is exactly what has happened with the court. They haven't cut ice at all with the court. So that is the reason why you have noticed that, the appeal has been dismissed. So this is a great step, but let's wait and watch. Let's see until all his avenues have been exhausted and he literally sets foot on the Indian soil. Then, of course, he'll have to face the Indian law as per the charges of the, charges leveled in the charge sheet.
Right, Mr. Kothari, thank you so much for sharing all those details. Just to wrap this up for our viewers, well, we do know that Nirav Modi's defense teams did say that he is suffering from depression and coming back to India will not be the greatest thing for him. But we're going to take a quick short break and come right back with more news and views.